On April 17th of 1863, Union Colonel Benjamin Grierson set out on a raid from LaGrange, Tennessee, south through the state of Mississippi, per U.S. Grant's orders. He was to uh, he was to leave LaGrange, Tennessee, with the intent to disrupt Confederate forces throughout the state of Mississippi. This was known as Grierson's Raid. Now, Grierson's troopers of 1,700 um, consisted of the 6th, the 7th Illinois, and the 2nd Iowa Cavalry. Now, Benjamin Grierson was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania on July 8th of 1826, and he was actually kicked in the head as a youth by a horse and almost killed, knocked out, knocked unconscious by a horse. He overcame his fear and became an outstanding horseman. So that's why this is a very interesting raid, because he was so afraid of horses to begin with. But he led his cavalry through Mississippi starting on April 17th. Now, all through the winter of 1863, U.S. Grant, had been working on a strategy to take the defenses of Vicksburg. Vicksburg Confederate forces were on a high bluff along the Mississippi River, facing west on the Mississippi River. Vicksburg sits upon a large bluff overlooking the Mississippi and makes it a perfect fort for the Confederate forces and armor. Major General John C. Pemberton was actually from Pennsylvania also, was in charge of the Confederate forces in Vicksburg. Vicksburg was a major stronghold along the Mississippi River. If Grant could take Vicksburg, he could have control of almost all of the Mississippi River from Minnesota down to the Gulf of Mexico. There were a few spots that were still under Confederate control, but a majority of the Mississippi would be under Union hands. Now, Grant had tried several times to take Vicksburg. He had tried to take Vicksburg from the north. There's a lot of bayous, swamps, marshes up north of Vicksburg that he sent Sherman's army down through to try to capture Vicksburg. He also set gunboats down through these swamps, but he could not get any farther than he could not get through. Grant or Sherman could not get through because of the marshes, the dense forest. The rivers were the Yazoo River is what it was. Yazoo River was too shallow for gunboats to go through, and it turned through bramble, and it was just unnavigable for Sherman and the port. So Grant had to call an end to that. He also tried to build a canal, dig a canal, not build, dig a canal connecting one part of the Mississippi to the other, and the Mississippi went into a loop, would go into a loop like this. He tried to cut right through that loop, and that would divert the Mississippi River through that canal. This was in the summer. He tried to do it in April, May, when it was getting hot. Sherman was given the task of doing this also. Did not work. And also started raining. It turned into a nightmare. It was hot and rainy, muddy all the time. Could not be done. Also tried to reconnect a lake that was part of the Mississippi River, which would help divert the Mississippi River past Vicksburg. This did not work. So Grant came up with the idea, and Lincoln approved it, that he would go south along the Mississippi River, bring his soldiers south, his army south, down past Vicksburg, cross the Mississippi River north of Baton Rouge, and go up through the state of Mississippi from the south, and then take Vicksburg from the east. So Grant had sent Grierson on this raid, leaving LaGrange, Tennessee on April 17th, on a raid to go through the state of Mississippi. Two reasons. One of the reasons was to draw Confederate forces away from Vicksburg, chasing Grierson on his raid of 1,700 horsemen or cavalrymen going south. This would disrupt that area and possibly bring troops away from Vicksburg. The other goal was to take out a rail line that ran from Meridian into Vicksburg. Mississippi had a line that went from Meridian to Jackson, Mississippi, to Vicksburg. It went west. Grierson's order was to take out this railroad line. And the main railroad line between the hub between Meridian and Jackson was called Newton Station, Mississippi. His goal was to destroy that railroad line to prevent troops going from the east to the west, Vicksburg, resupply, remand. So he left on April 17th out of LaGrange, Tennessee, moving south into Mississippi. And he ended up, his raid ended on approximately May the 2nd. So he was gone from April 17th, and he finished his raid on May the 2nd. Now, his first stop when he left LaGrange was in basically Grand Junction. He went through Grand Junction, Mississippi south, and you can follow the map while I go along. He then went into Ripley, and he met a small force of skirmishers at Ripley, and then he went down through New Albany and Houston, Mississippi, destroying lines, destroying telegraph lines as he went also. Then he went also from Ripley, he divided his forces. He had approximately 1,700 horse soldiers. He divided his forces at Ripley and sent Colonel Hatch with approximately 700 soldiers up north. Now, Colonel Hatch was supposed to do some diversionary tactics too, destroying supplies and whatnot, and also to give the impression that they were retreating, going back into Tennessee. So he was to bring more troops from Grierson. Grierson left Ripley with approximately 950 to 1,000 horse soldiers. Also went south into Houston, doing damage, then into Newton Station, which is far down into central Mississippi. He stopped up at Newton Station, and that was his main goal, to destroy Newton Station and the railroad line there, and railroad lines, ties, do whatever damage he could, and this would disrupt any troops going from Meridian to Jackson and then Jackson to Vicksburg. He then went farther south, ran into some more skirmishing on the way south. He had to move to the southwest because of some troops that were directly south of him. So he had to do a diversionary tactic to go west. And he headed west and then headed actually down towards Port Hudson, which is north of Baton Rouge. He was going to connect up with Grant at Grand Gulf, Mississippi. That's where Grant was going to take his troops across, and he was going to reconnect with Grant. But Grant could not get his troops over the Mississippi in time to meet Grierson. So Grierson had to continue south into Baton Rouge. Now, Baton Rouge was under Union control at the time, so it was actually safe for him to go. So he continued south. He did some railroad damage around April 25th on the near Brookhaven. He did some more railroad damage, a little to keep troops from going in to take on Grant, because that station, Union Church, was actually almost east of where Grant was supposed to come up with his troops. So he cut off a line there to prevent troops going over to reinforce Grant. He then went south into Baton Rouge, and on May the 2nd, he ended the raid. Now, in reality, he did more damage and took more prisoners than they took on. He took almost 500 prisoners, close to 500 Confederate prisoners. Many casualties for the Confederates, and he lost between 12 and 25. I think the number of is about 12 men that he lost in the raid. So he did really did an exceptional job of getting through Mississippi without losing a whole lot of men. But he took in 500 prisoners, millions of dollars in damage, and cut telegraph lines, and actually Grant was very impressed with the raid. Said one of the best raids anybody's ever had. So Grant was pretty impressed with that. Now, after the war, Grierson went out west during the Native American Wars, the battle between the U.S. and the Native American Wars. Now, he was captain, actually a colonel over. They were called the Buffalo Soldiers. They were the African American soldiers that the Native American called Buffalo Soldiers, and he was over them. He was a colonel over the troops, and he got ostracized because he treated the black troops with much respect, and he was really impressed with their fighting skills, and he got ostracized. And he was offered other commands too, but he chose to lead the black troops in battle. And he apparently got ostracized because he treated them very, very well. So he died on August 31st in Michigan, 1911. And he's actually buried in Jacksonville, Illinois, in the cemetery in Jacksonville, because he was a teacher, a music teacher, before the Civil War. He taught music in school in Jacksonville before he enlisted into the Army. Now, there is a movie about the horse soldiers called The Horse Soldiers. The book was written by Harold Sinclair. If you want any more information, detailed information, you probably want to read something on that. Harold Sinclair, called The Horse Soldiers, came out. He wrote it in the 50s, and he's actually from my hometown of Bloomington, Illinois. That was turned into a movie directed by John Ford that stars John Wayne. It's a fictionalized version of the raid. There was really no love story involved in the raid, but as far as historical accuracy, it's pretty accurate. And so you get some information on that, but the love story never happened. It's actually a good movie. I'm very impressed with the movie. Very factual. And that's about it. Thank you for watching. Keep an eye out we're going to have some new surroundings in the next couple of weeks, so you may see some changes of surroundings. We may be changing our location a little bit to further our channel. I want to thank you for watching. Keep an eye out. I have another episode coming out on Lincoln, the next chapter, so keep an eye out for that. Thank you for watching, and just keep in mind, did you know? Thank you very much.